When he shows up, if he shows up, then he'll be here. If not, then we do it without you, Manny. We don't need you. Welcome to Red Salad Review. What?
We like Manny.
He's all right. He's a new guy, so we got to pick on him.
That looks like Danny Wilkler.
Because I don't know. You know, if you tell me he sucks, I'll just say he sucks. But
no, Manny's.
No, we like Manny.
Manny's cool. He knows a lot about anything. he's a music guy. He's another music guy. He's a music nerd like us, so he knows his shit. So Manny's a good guy.
We are proud dweebs on this show. We don't care what anyone says.
Yeah.
Oh man, this makes me super excited to be here. I appreciate Wayne and you guys having me on, man. This is great.
No problem. Well, welcome.
Any
Don.
excuse to dork out is always a fun time.
Well, welcome Don De Leaumont to the show.
Yes,
Mr. Great Southern Brainfart.
That love it or leave it. That's me.
Where did you come up with that name, by the way?
You know, it's funny because I started the blog probably back around 2000. So I started blogging like around 2007, and really at that point it was just a very informal, just a hobby kind of type of thing, you know, because like I'd always wanted to be a writer when I was a kid, and I never pursued it. I didn't study it in college or anything, but you know, sometime around 2006, 2007, I was working in IT at UNC in Chapel Hill, where my wife was in grad school, and I worked in IT, and so they just started launching the blogging platform WordPress, and so we had to learn how to use WordPress in order to help out our grad students and whatnot. And this is I'm a king of long stories, by the way. So anyway,
yeah, I know. I read this book.
We got time.
That book could have been fucking 20 pages. But anyway, so you know, to cut to the chase, what happened was when I started doing the blog, I just kind of used it. You know, I was learning how to do it, and kind of the fundamental of like, okay, this is kind of a cool outlet for me to write about, you know, music I like, and you know, just like kind of, you know, think pieces or, you know, opinion pieces, and when it came time to kind of come up with a name, again, kind of like the blogging world was still pretty new, but I was like, I wanted something that stood out. And at the time, a buddy of mine, we were talking about the Pantera album, the Great Southern Trendkill.
Yeah. Okay.
And it just kind of seemed to fall into place because I'm constantly brain farting. Like I forget shit. I have diarrhea of the mouth. I'm all over the place. And I forgot who it was too. It was a friend at the time, and he said something about, he said, you're just the Great Southern Brainfart. And I was like, oh, that's fucking brilliant. That's what I'm going to use. I'm like, how many great brainfarts are there in the internet? You know, so so that's kind of where that came from. It was a spin off of one of the worst metal albums of all time.
I wouldn't go that far.
Don't let that shock you. Don't let that shock you, Lou, because he's got a lot of problems with me too. So
that's fine.
But this is
we must be united on what we like, not what we dislike. This is what I tell people all the time.
But you know what? I always tell people this though, you know, like my whole life as a kid and as a teenager, it's no wonder that I had 3 friends, you know, all through high school, you know, because I hung out with 2 other guys that were like the same way as me. And you know, we were always, you know, busting each other's balls about, you know, somebody liking something that the other one didn't like. But the cool thing was that even if it was stuff we didn't like, we wanted to know about it. You know, we wanted to know lineage, we wanted to know history, and we wanted to know, you know, about band members. And you know, it's all about like everything. Just being a dork is fun, even if it's something you don't like. You know,
amen to that.
You know, but I mean,
And music is the best thing to be a dork about. I mean, God, it's just, you can go on and on and on. You know, there's so many bands out there, and reading through your book and everything, and all the bands that you've discovered too. It's, you know, it's just a big world of fun.
One of the reasons why I actually even started the blog in the first place was, like I said, when I first started it, it was just kind of a way for me to just write about music, you know, right. Because I liked it, and I wanted to share it with the 2 or 3 people that actually would care about it. And then around 2009, when we moved back to Atlanta after my wife got out of grad school, you know, I got lucky enough to not have to work a regular job all the time, because we don't have kids. And so my wife got a great job. She's a scientist, and I became the domestic god, and was basically like, you can do whatever you want to do. And I'm like, well, fuck, what do I want to do? Like, I knew this was coming, but I didn't really plan well for it, you know? And so I just decided to start the blog, you know, pursuing it more, and then kind of, condensed it down to more of a focus around hard rock and metal.
Right. Yeah.
And it just became an outlet for me to just learn about bands. Like I was so out of touch with metal at that point. Like, I had no idea that metal was even starting to kind of come back with a whole new, the new wave of traditional heavy metal.
Right. Yeah. So I noticed when I was reading your book, I'm like, oh my God, he like totally ditched metal. I'm like, you son of a bitch.
Well, I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm 48. So
42. We're not
41. Okay. So metal hit this pretty rough point, man. Like,
I don't remember that.
Shit.
Not to me,
Shit's bad when Bruce Dickinson and Halford are jumping ship from their bands, just to do something different, and like, for me, I think I've always just been very curmudgeonly and kind of, get off my lawn, you new kids. I don't want your fucking corn and your Limp Biscuits and your whatevers. And, and I think that, you had Bruce leaving Maiden, you had Halford leaving Priest, Maiden wasn't putting out good albums anymore, at least for me. I didn't like the Blaze era albums. I didn't like the Ripper era Priest, and this whole new movement of metal came in, and it just, like, I didn't gravitate to it. It didn't grasp me. But, like most people my age, and, I never gave up on metal. I just gave up on what was coming out, so I had all the metal that I loved. I continued to have my Sabbath and my Dio and my Maiden and, my Saxon and, my Priest and whatever. But then it wasn't until 2009 where I started to hear about bands like White Wizard and Cauldron, and bands, who was it? Holy Grail, who was actually, they were Sorcerer at the time. These young kids who were like not even born yet when I was listening to metal, who were playing metal that I grew up listening to.
Right.
Yeah. So all of a sudden I got re-energized again. And so the blog became the outlet for me to kind of rediscover metal, in a new generation. Right.
Yeah, I'd love to, like you say, the new wave of British heavy metal, new wave of traditional heavy metal. Sorry, because like you said, it revised up, what we loved, about metal, and kind of, we don't need to listen to this new metal crap. I never got into the new metal either. I mean, I listened to Korn for like 5 minutes, and then I was done with it. So, but I always found. Yeah. But I always found bands that were kind of similar, like Halloween. I always found bands that were kind of similar to those and similar to Iron Maiden and stuff like that. So I always stayed within, that range or whatever. I never became a huge power metal fan. Lou, I'm not done.
Sorry, I thought you were done. There was a pause there.
This is the problem I have with Lou. He just tries to interrupt me.
I'm the king of cutoffs, man. So you guys need to talk fast.
No, go ahead, Lou.
No, please go ahead. Continue.
I don't even, you interrupt me so much. I don't remember what I was saying.
I'm not interrupting. You're talking about Halloween. You discovered other bands like Halloween. You were happy. European power metal, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just trying to get Halloween. So go ahead.
I can still see the goddamn pumpkin behind you, and Don's wearing a
There he
Halloween
is.
shirt.
The poor guy is surrounded, man. Like, you know, he's got, you
Up
got
here
the
too.
pumpkin. I got the.
I got a flag up there too.
Oh, for the love of Christ! Oh.
This dude's kind of in a shit boat if he doesn't like Halloween or
No, I
Maiden.
love Halloween. I
You
have
know?
Sasha on my shows. He's great. It's just, you know, when you review how many albums in a row?
18.
18,
right? Something like that.
you know, and that's all you listen to. You can't help but go a little batshit crazy. But I digress. No, I was just gonna say, like, the bands like Shadows Fall helped reinvigorate my love for metal when I was getting tired of the new metal stuff. I mean, I was already a fan of bands like Typo Negative and who did I say? Typo Negative and Vision of Disorder and Fear Factory were 3 bands in the 90s, and I'll throw Seven Dust in there too for good measure, that kept my love for metal alive. But then once Shadows Fall and Killswitch Engage and Lamb of God came out, it's like, oh, okay, I can really get into this. But you know, from there, it was a gateway for me to discover some of the newer traditional metal bands that were coming out. I have to say, I love Night Demon a lot, and I'm really happy that Night Demon is pretty much the impetus for why we have Sirith Ungol back on the scene. And
yes, because
their latest stuff
Jarvis
killer.
was doing that festival out
Yeah.
in I forgot the name of it. Is it called Fire and Ice?
Is that an American festival?
Yeah, he was putting on like a festival out in Los Angeles or in California, where they're from, and I know that he was pretty responsible for getting like Sirith Ungol like back into like some like in like to the American shows or something.
Quite possibly. I don't know the name of the fest.
I think the drummer talked about that on your show.
It was like Frost and Fire or something like that.
Yeah, I forgot the name of what the festival was, but yeah, no, actually it was on your show, Wayne. I just
technically
duplicated it on mine because I'm like, well, it was the first time I did Rat Side Review solo, so fuck it, I'm taking it. Taking it back.
The boss needed a vacation that day, but yeah. So.
He's just like, son, you're on your own.
Oh boy. But all right, so you sent me this, but well, first of all, how we met was TikTok. And you know, I told Lou, I said, you know what, I'm gonna try out TikTok because I'm on every other social media and I'm getting sick of people on Twitter. I hate Twitter.
I'm still waiting for you to do a busted video, Wayne. Come on, you know busted videos are huge video on TikTok.
Instagram, I'm not crazy about Instagram. And Facebook, I still like Facebook because I don't even know why, but I just have more interaction with people on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, let me try this TikTok thing because everybody's on TikTok. I can make videos. I can even take our YouTube channel stuff and throw it up on TikTok. And then, and I forgot how I even found you on there, but I found you on TikTok and I saw some of the videos that you did and some of the bands that you talk about and everything. And I listened to some of them and some of the bands were pretty cool. And what's that one that you keep showing that you insist that's like your favorite band right now?
Who, me? Oh gosh.
Yeah.
It depends on what week you're talking about, man. I don't know.
You posted a picture of it the other day. You're holding the record.
Oh gosh, who was that? Oh gosh, could it be Nephila?
Maybe it's like a folky almost type metal band.
Okay, yeah, if it's like that kind of psychedelic looking painting.
Yes.
Like yeah, that's a Swedish band called Nephila. Who's kind of like they're kind of like a roots rock. It'd be almost like Rival Sons if they had 2 female singers that were a little more folky rock than But I'm always raving about some band that I have like 100 favorite bands, man.
Yeah, I do too. All behind me. But yeah, I've seen all your TikTok videos and everything, and the bands that you were saying that you liked, and they were pretty cool. And you're a pretty cool guy too. So I was like, all right, I'll talk to this guy. And then you said, let me send you a book. You said, let me send you a book, and I said, sure. And then you sent me this book, Southeast of Heaven.
That book,
Metalheads
yes.
Journey,
which I purchased on Kindle, but purchased on Kindle, but I would like to eventually purchase a hard copy once I find employment again. So
Well,
on my bucket list.
I'll make sure you get one. Yeah, because I feel bad for anyone that bought one. So
make sure you send it to my dear pal Louie. Okay.
consider it the buy one get one. Seriously, man, because like anyone who bought one, I'm like I should have just given you another just to like give away or something.
So what made you write the book? You just all of a sudden just to start, decide to write a book.
Well, it started probably, I mean, the idea of writing a book was never something I had ever.
Right.
The blog was my passion. The Great Southern Brainfart was my, and still is. It's my, it's like my safe space. It's like where my head is, where my passion for music is, and like before I started the blog, I remember somebody reviewed Guns N' Roses show, and I messaged the guy and I said, "You must be fucking deaf because that show sucked." And he said, "If you don't like it, start your own fucking blog." And I remember going, "Well, fine." You know what I mean? Like, and so
Right,
like,
yeah.
Maybe I will.
So the blog for me has always been that, it's been my, my opinions, my thoughts, my feelings, take it or leave it. And sometimes, and I'm honest to a fault, but yeah, so it was, I never thought in the sense of a book. To me, everything has always been in the sense of like, small pieces. And a good friend of mine who is a writer up in New York, her name is Catherine Turman. She used to write for Rip magazine back in the 90s. And she was one of my influences. And she had written a book, an oral history of heavy metal called Louder Than Hell with John Wiederhorn, which is an incredible book. It's dense, but it's really, really good. And after interviewing her, we got to be good friends, and she kind of became a mentor to me. And I would send her links to whenever I'd write a story or whatever. And one day she was just like, you should consider compiling all this stuff into a book. And I'm like, well, who would want to fucking read all this? And she was like, well, I would. I'd read it. I mean, these are fun stories, And so for the better part of 2 years, I just, kind of went back into the blog a little bit to some of these older stories that had like 32 views and, and said, okay, well, no one's going to miss this if I pull it off the blog. And, and then I kind of rewrote them, in the voice, and in the style of writing that I have now. And then over the course of a year, just started, compiling stories and memories of my time of being a metalhead, from the first time I heard Twisted Sister to, when that book came out, and even since the book has come out, like my journey has already gone another, feels like another 2 miles or so.
Yeah.
But writing it was just kind of a way for me to compile all these things before I get too old to remember the shit. So like at this point, I think it's probably like 94% accurate. If I would have waited 2 more years, it would have been like 84, so I figured might as well do it while I can still remember the stories for the most part. But yeah, so that's kind of where it came from. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't a long-term dream or a goal of mine, but something I'm glad I did,
Yeah, I enjoy it. Listen, I'm not a book reader, so for me to get to read any book, and I read your book, I enjoyed it a lot, and I read it from beginning to end. And then I even went back and when I knew you were coming on to remind myself of some things. But it's a very good book, and a lot of it reminded me of myself. How I was in school. I listened to metal, and like you, people look kind of down on you because you listen to metal in a way, and it's so stupid, but it is what it is,
I didn't care being the only kid in middle and high school with an Iron Maiden shirt. I didn't care at all. So I related to that. That was awesome.
I appreciate that, man. I mean, that was really the, you know, the ultimate goal once I realized I was getting to this point where it was actually going to be a feasible thing. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine, another buddy of mine who's an editor, and he was asking me, he said, like, what's your ultimate goal for this? Like, to sell books, to promote it? And I was like, honestly, I was like, if anyone can read this book and like nod their heads and go like, oh fuck yeah, I totally like that, to me was what I wanted to get out of it. You know,
that's definitely what you got.
Yeah.
I mean,
and then so then I succeeded, you know. I mean, that
Yes.
was like really my only end game, you know. I mean,
I think probably like the biggest differences between, like, let's say you and us is that, you know, you were a teenager when that whole satanic panic thing was going on with the PMRC. I mean, Wayne and I, we were in single digits. So we were really old enough to remember. Like, I can remember a time when cassettes did not have the parental advisory sticker, and then all of a sudden, like, you know, Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction, boom, there it is, right on there. And you know, but you grew up in the middle of that, and you know, Wayne, I think I could speak for the both of us. We were completely oblivious to what was going on. We were just about the music, you know. So whether it's from our ultimate gateway band, which is Def Leppard, to, you know, Metallica and things like that. But I just wanted to say, for me personally, your appreciation for the band Zebra really stuck out to me. I had the pleasure of playing 3 shows in my life with Mr. Randy Jackson, and he was nothing short of a gentleman. I mean, such a great guy. And just like, you know, here I am at 32 years old, fanboying in front of him, and I'm just like, it's kind of crazy that you're just a regular guy and you're someone whose music I remember listening to when I was a kid. And he's like, Lou, I am a regular guy. And I'm like, I know, and I love it about you.
Oh, there used to be a joke going around that anyone who was born after the release of the first Zebra album got one with their birth certificate, because we were like, because I grew up in New Orleans, and so like pretty much like, I mean, like, I didn't know anyone that didn't have the first Zebra record, you know, because when I was growing, you know, like I said, I grew up in New Orleans, you know, like, you know, you'd go over to some dude's house and, you know, he'd be, you know, have just a ton of records and a Zebra record. So it wasn't weird, you know, to like know who Zebra was. So I was actually pretty ecstatic, you know, when people were just like, dude, you like Zebra? And I'm like, well, yeah, dude, of course I do. Like, why is that exciting to somebody? You know?
Yeah, for a while, I think they actually had the record for Atlantic Records' biggest selling debut album. I think 70,000 copies in its first week.
They did.
So,
yes.
you know, that was no small feat.
Nah, and I mean, you know, and it's still an album that holds up to, you know, to this day, you know. Man, they were the Southern Rush, dude. You know,
I never listened to a full Zebra album.
You need to listen to their debut album at least.
Dude,
it's classic.
If you listen, that debut album to me is like, I mean, it's flawless front to back. It's like perfectly sequenced. Not a bad song on it.
I'll give it a shot. A friend of mine here, he would always go see Zebra when they play around here. So,
you guys up in New York? Are you up in New York?
Yeah, Long Island.
Okay, yeah, because I know that they relocated to Long Island like before the first album. Actually, they got signed up there. I think is what it was, and which is so funny because they've been a New York band longer than they were a New Orleans band, but New Orleans still claims them.
Well, I think Felix, yeah, that's fine. Felix and Randy still live up here. I think Guy lives in Texas.
I think so too. I know, because I know Randy is up there still too, because I interviewed him a few years ago, I think, to talk about the debut Zebra album, and we talked about it song by song, which was a lot of fun. He's a great guy. Yeah, just super. That's awesome. You got to play with him though. Yeah, I'm actually jealous.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, it was just. I mean, I was in a Rush tribute band at the time, and I played bass and keyboards. Don't ask me to sing. Your lawn will die worse than Lemmy's would. But you know, just like the fact that like I was introduced to him through my drummer at the time, John, and I just so gracious, you know, like it was hard explaining to people. I was like, yeah, I just played a gig with Randy Jackson. And they're like, oh, the guy from American Idol. I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. No, not that guy. Not that guy.
Oh, I used to run into that a lot. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'm not surprised they didn't say, oh, you mean the guy from Journey? He wasn't Journey.
Right. Yeah.
Actually, there's a funny story. So I was still living in New Orleans when Raised on Radio came out. And I remember hearing on the radio them talking about Randy Jackson being on, and I was like, Randy Jackson's in Journey? Holy fuck, how did that happen? And then all of a sudden I was like, I don't get it. What's going, you know, like, why is he playing bass? And then I learned that there was another Randy Jackson. So
and you're like, Randy, did you gain weight? No.
Yeah, right. It's like, and get a box cut. Like, I'm not quite sure what's going on here, man.
Yeah, really dark tan too, Randy.
That is a super tan. Are you thinking of suing Beach Bum Tan? I'm sorry.
It's funny. No, great guy, man. Both of them, great guys. I haven't met the other Randy Jackson, but although I think it's kind of funny that to us he's the other Randy Jackson.
Right.
Like, I'm sure Zebras would be the other Randy Jackson to other people. You know.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Hostile takeover. Manny's coming in. Manny from Florida.
But the funny thing is, you pronounce New Orleans, and not Nolans.
Yeah, you have not dropped
Throw
the
me
Nolans on us yet.
You
Hey,
know, it's
Manny,
funny,
what's up?
Hey, I'm sorry I'm late. I was on a phone with a client. So how you doing?
You're right.
Hey,
Manny,
what's up,
Don De
Manny?
Leaumont, Don, Manny.
Hey, Don. I was
How you
listening to part of
doing?
your podcast while I was talking to the client. I heard the name Kathleen Turner. She wrote for RIP and also wrote the book, The History of Heavy Metal, with a co-writer. Is that the same Kathleen Turner?
Kathleen Turner
Catherine
from
Turner.
Who Framed Roger
Catherine,
Rabbit?
Catherine
No, not
Turman.
Kathleen Turner. What is her name? I've got the
Catherine
book.
Turman.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I've got the book on my bookshelf somewhere.
Yeah,
So.
she did that book with John Wiedehorn. Yeah.
I'm not for. That's the only thing I've ever read with him on it. So, anyway,
Yeah,
apologize. I interrupted you guys. So.
No, man. No, dude. Not. I forgot.
More the merrier.
We were
got all
talking about how you.
excited.
Yeah, we're talking about how you pronounce New Orleans.
Oh,
New Orleans.
do you guys familiar with Exhorter?
Yes,
yes,
The
absolutely.
band Exhorter. Yeah. Their lead singer, Kyle. He's they're all from New Orleans, obviously. And I remember talking to Kyle one time, and he said nobody from New Orleans says Nolans. Nobody does. We all say New Orleans. Nolans was created for tourists.
I mean, think about it. None of the other bands that we know of, Wayne, I Hate God, Crowbar, anything Phil Anselmo touches, I mean, he never calls it Nolans. So,
No.
and I love all those bands. New Orleans. What I love about the New Orleans metal scene is the fact that Kirk Winstein, right off the bat, said if it wasn't for Carnivore, Pete Steele from Brooklyn, Typo Negative, future lead singer, founder, guru, whatever you want to call him. He said if it wasn't for bands like Carnivore, it's like the metal scene wouldn't be as prevalent as it was in the club scene in New Orleans. So, when he said that, I was just like, love Kirk, such a good guy.
The New Orleans scene was interesting back in the 80s because I wasn't old enough to go to clubs yet. And so in New Orleans, pretty much if you're within like a 30-mile radius, you just call it New Orleans, like regardless of it. So I grew up in Metairie, which is where most of those bands were from. It's where Kirk was from. It's where Pepper Keenan was from. Phil lived there. Kyle from Exhorter lives there, Jimmy Bauer, so Metairie was kind of like the closest, suburb to New Orleans. You're talking probably within like a 20-minute drive, but when all those bands were playing clubs, I couldn't get into clubs. But what these bands used to do is so there's like a Catholic school every 2 blocks in New Orleans because it's like a Catholic city, you know.
Right.
And there was a school there called St. Christopher's, and they had a huge gymnasium that was run by what they used to call the CYO, which is the Catholic Youth Organization. And what these bands would do is they would rent out the gymnasium for like a Friday night or a Saturday night or so. And you know, there was usually no booze because you know it was all ages, a lot of young kids like me or whatever. And they'd put a stage in there, lights and everything, and you can go see like 5 or 6 bands for like $4, you know, $3, you know. And so, you know, I got to see bands like, you know, Lillian Axe and, you know, Victorian Blitz, which was Kirk's band from you know, Crowbar. Kirk actually, when he was in Victorian Blitz, he had a mullet, and he used to wear these like skin tight spandex pants, and he played like, it was like a hot pink Kramer, I think. And they used to do like Maiden covers, you know, and so like Phantom of the Opera and shit, you know, and you know, Pepper.
Then he learned to play slow.
You know, but that was the funny thing. And then like, you know, Pepper Keenan was playing in a band called Graveyard Rodeo, and they used to play at the VFW Hall. Which is like, if you think about it, it's such a weird place to have metal shows, you know. It's like, you know, let's rent out the Vets Bar, you know, and you know, have a metal night, you know. But the metal scene at that time was very much like, didn't seem very different, you know, because it kind of mirrored LA or other parts of the world, you know, like it was hard rock, it was metal, and it didn't really seem to, you know, change much. But then after I had moved from New Orleans to Atlanta in like 88, and Kirk formed a band called the Slugs with oh god, what's his, I can't forget his name, Sexy T, the bass player for Crowbar.
Todd Strange.
Yeah, Todd Strange. Yeah, I just know they always called him Sexy T. But they had a band called the Slugs, and that was the first time I'd heard that kind of you know, where it took like 15 minutes to play 2 chords, you know, and but that sound, actually, to be honest, what didn't surprise me that it became synonymous with New Orleans, because it's so hot and muggy, and you know, like, as much as I hate to use the word, like, I mean, it almost feels like climately oppressive. Like it's just constantly heavy, and you move slow, and you know. And so when I started to hear that music, you know, coming out of them, and then once Crowbar became a thing, I just remember thinking like, yeah, okay, that sounds like New Orleans. Like if I had to pinpoint like what a sound would sound like, it was that, you know.
Cool, very interesting. So when I was reading your book, I noticed you talk a lot about your father, and you talk about how he actually liked to listen to the stuff that you were listening to and wanted to know why you were listening to it. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
because my father, he hates metal, and he never. He hated too. But my father would not listen to anything. He had no interest in my music whatsoever. He wouldn't even talk to me about it.
Still doesn't, right, Wayne?
No, still doesn't. But the funny thing is, he made you return a Wasp album.
Oh yeah. Of all the things,
unforgivable sin. That first Wasp album is amazing.
Look, man, I had At War with Satan, by Venom, and was told just to hide it from my mom so she wouldn't cry,
right?
When she saw the cover, like my dad was totally fine with me listening to Maiden and everything, and Ozzy and stuff, but his thing was that he was just a music fan himself, and so even if he didn't like metal, he just wanted to, we didn't have a great relationship and we couldn't talk, but like our communication was through music, and by him sitting down with me in my bedroom or in the living room and listening to an album, and kind of, it's almost like that was how he was getting involved in my life. You know, when he couldn't actually say to me, like, you know, what's going on? How are you? Da, 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 da. You know, he'd hear my music and know that that was kind of an outlet of me.
Right.
And he would hear a lot of these bands and he'd tell me, he'd say like, wow, that guy's a good singer. That guy's a good guitar player. I like the structure of this. The artwork looks great. But man, for some reason, man, when he heard that first Wasp record and I Want to Be Somebody came on, and I was just like, you know, I just remember thinking like, isn't this awesome? And my dad was like, this is terrible. He's like, I'm not gonna let you spend my money on this. And I was like, you gotta be kidding, man, it's Wasp. And my dad, I just remember he flipped over the record and he was like, look how stupid these guys are. And he was like, the gods you worship are steel, at the altar of rock and roll you kneel. He goes, who writes this crap? We're taking this back. And I'm so embarrassed because he like literally takes me to the record store, and you know, the burnout record store dude, you know, behind the counter, like, hey, man, you know, my dad's like, my son bought this record and I want to like exchange it. And he was like, oh yeah, I get it, it's like super like you know, like evil and stuff, right? My dad's like, no, they just suck. And the guy was like, yeah, man, Wasp does suck, man. I was like, you're not helping me here. And then my dad was just like, and he's like, what is this that's playing in the background? And it was like whatever the guy was spinning in the store. And he was like, oh man, that's Led Zeppelin 4. My dad goes, that sounds great. Give him that one instead.
Okay, that's an upgrade.
So that's how I ended up getting Led Zeppelin 4 for the first time. But then I went back and bought Wasp. You know, a couple weeks later, I just didn't tell him. And I still have it to this day. And you know, of course, like, you know, years later, you know, in my 20s and stuff, I told him, you know, I said, you know, I went back and bought that Wasp album, and he was like, oh, I'm not stupid. Of course, I know you did.
Funny anecdote to add to that. So when I hit 10, I told my dad I really wanted to learn how to play guitar. So for Christmas 92, when I was 12, he bought me an acoustic. So I started teaching myself with Mel Bay books that my brothers had. And then I started learning to play by ear. Then all of a sudden I'm playing D from Blizzard of Oz. My father comes in and he goes, Louis, that's beautiful. He had a very thick Greek accent. He's like, Louis, that's so beautiful. And then we all know what comes in 45 seconds later. Suicide Solution. And he's like, oh, what the fuck is this shit? And he walks out. He's like, He didn't bother praying for me. He just gave up. Love you, Dad. Miss you.
but thanks for a great minute and a half. I'm out of here.
At least I got a good 45-second show.
So funny.
Did you ever anything like that ever happen to you, Manny?
No, my parents didn't like rock at all. It's not because they were against it or religious. My mom's Colombian, my dad's Puerto Rican. They're a little bit older. Well, my dad's passed away, but just culturally, they didn't relate to any of the music. So it was more on that level than it was.
So it was Larry Harlow or Celia Cruz?
Basically, or whatever they were into. My mom was really into music, but
that.
not rock music. But she didn't take it serious. You know, when she saw a picture of Alice Cooper, for example, she just looked at it as entertainment. Same thing with Kiss. She didn't see anything sinister in people wearing makeup or logos or whatever, you know. Yeah, she didn't take that part seriously. Yeah, I guess her equivalent was like a horror movie put to music for some of it. She just didn't take it. Neither, and you know, my dad could care less. You know, at least I was interested in something. Was their thought.
Right. Yeah. And speaking of Alice Cooper, Don, you met Alice Cooper.
Yes, I did actually. Yeah.
Yeah. That was pretty cool. How was that? Because I'm a huge Alice Cooper fan. We actually just did an Alice Cooper show for Halloween.
I know. I tuned in for that. That was great.
Yeah.
Well, I watched it late, but yeah. Oh, and before I forget, your Wayne, your cover of "Reason to Live" was awesome.
Yeah.
I loved listening to that.
Thank
I-
you.
Yeah, that came out really good.
I meant to tell you guys that the other day, and I totally just spaced. I saw something shiny.
Lisa
but,
Mann was definitely her contribution to that. I think made the song just shine. So
Oh,
Yeah,
it was great. It was so much fun. You know, like I've got a soft spot for some of those '80s Kiss songs, and that's one of them, without a
yeah,
doubt.
yeah. I do too.
But
But
that's
that's why
the
we
woman.
did it.
Yeah, that's the woman I told you about. You might want to check her album out, White Chrome.
Yes, White Crone the Poisoner.
Oh yes, yeah. You
Yeah.
sent me that link.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got it. I'm definitely on like a short list to listen to. But no, Alice Cooper was cool. That was actually a birthday present from Catherine Turman. She is actually Alice Cooper's. She did some production work with him on his radio show, Nights with Alice Cooper, and he was playing here in Atlanta, opening for Motley Crue, and he.
No, you can say destroying. It's all right.
Okay, yeah, he absolutely obliterated Motley Crue, but and so she was able to get me after show pass to meet him for my birthday, and that was probably aside from meeting Bruce Dickinson in like '94, that was the most like nervous, like almost borderline starstruck I'd ever. Have you ever seen You guys seen The Godfather?
Yeah.
Do you know that scene where Luca Brasi is like practicing what he's gonna say to the Godfather?
Don Corleone, I'm very proud that you invited me to your daughter's wedding. May her first child be a masculine one. Never seen it.
Yeah, exactly. So he's repeating that whole thing, and I'm standing in line to go back into the backstage area, and I've got my copy of $1 Billion Babies that my dad had bought me, and I'm holding the album, and my wife's with me, and she's just like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why?" And I just kept looking at the album. I was going, "Alice Cooper, thank you so much for, big fan of you. And like, this is the album my dad bought me, and and you've been a big influence." I'm trying to figure out. All of a sudden, like the curtain opens up, and I walk right in, and Alice Cooper staring there, and I just looked at him, and he just goes, "Breathe," and I was like, "Oh Jesus." And I was like, I kind of felt like that in that Wayne's World where they're like, "We're not," and he like holds his hand out, but he was just like, "Breathe," and I'm like, "Oh my God." I was like, "I am so sorry, man." He goes, "It's okay. It's okay." He goes, "You must be Catherine's friend." And I was like, "Yeah." And then not like a minute later, he's talking to my wife about, what she does, and, talking to me about my blog, and, wanting to know about, and so impressed that I had $1 Billion Babies that had all the inserts still in it with nothing destroyed or missing, and signed it. But like, like a minute into it, like you just totally forget you're talking to Alice Cooper. And he set the bar so high to me for like just modesty of an artist that I've met artists since then and interviewed artists since then that are like not even close to his status, that I'm just like, you could you could learn a lesson or two from Alice Cooper on how to, but it was a magical situation, man. It was one of those probably once in a lifetime moments, but I wouldn't want to relive it again because it probably wouldn't be as great as that one time,
Right. Yeah, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
I just read something the other day, something that I had no idea that he did. Some family or whatever was losing their house, and they painted their house all this Alice Cooper stuff because they were huge fans of Alice Cooper. So they painted the whole outside of the house, all this Alice Cooper pictures and everything. And then the neighbors, were trying to get them to get out of there because they didn't like it. Look, crappy in the neighborhood. But Alice Cooper actually went to help them out to pay to keep their house. And he had he was selling T-shirts and signing autographs of people. He ended up giving them like $30,000 or something like that.
Mhm.
And they ended up only staying in the house a couple more months, and then they ended up losing it anyway. But no musician really goes and does that kind of stuff. There would be no reason for people just to randomly do that, and that's cool of him to do something like that. He didn't have to.
Yeah, most musicians are doing please GoFundMe to help me in my rehab payments. He actually helped them. That's why he's the man.
That's a whole other sore foot for me. Is the whole GoFundMe thing from musicians, but that might be a whole other topic episode at some point. But those people that painted their house like Alice Cooper, I want them as neighbors. Like that's the kind of neighbors, people I want living next door to me.
Right. And the other cool one that you met too, as I read in the book, was Bruce Dickinson. That was a really cool story.
Yeah, that was a very life-changing experience meeting Bruce Dickinson. Like a friend of mine who had was the manager of do you guys remember Camelot Music? Do you remember that they were like it was like
they were huge. Yeah,
they were like one of the big mall record stores or whatever. And she was manager of Camelot Music, and my dad worked in the same mall at a jewelry store. And so I spent a lot of time in the mall, just going to hang out at record stores until he got off work. And I spent a lot of time in Camelot, and she knew I was a Maiden fan. And she called me up one day and asked me if just a bunch of random Maiden trivia questions, and I didn't understand where she was going with it. And I answered them all, whatever. And I'm like, why do you care? And she's like, well, I have this invitation to Bruce Dickinson's album release party for Balls to Picasso, and I have no interest in going. And you're the biggest Maiden fan I know. So do you want to go? And I was like, yeah. So I assumed that it was going to be one of those things where you just went and they played the album, what I mean? And like, I had just turned 21. And a friend of mine went with me, and we got there, and it was like a open bar, shit, and like a buffet of all kinds of crazy food I'd never seen in my life, and we were like in heaven, and all of a sudden it's like we realized at the last minute on the invitation it said that there was going to be a performance by Bruce, and so he did an acoustic performance that night, and like probably 4 or 5 songs from Balls to Picasso. And then afterwards, he was kind of just like schmoozing in the crowd, and everybody was in like suits and like shirt and ties. And like me and my buddy are in like Maiden shirts with like Maiden records in our hands. So it's like totally like, and he just, we were standing at the buffet trying to figure out what the food was. And really all I could identify were the carrots. And celery. And I just remember thinking like, what is this stuff right here? And I asked my buddy, and I was like, what is this shit? And all of a sudden in the back of behind me, I hear someone said, that's hummus. And I turn around and it's Bruce Dickinson telling me what hummus is. And I'm going, is it good? That was like my first word to Bruce, like, is it good? Like I want, and he was just like, he's like, yeah. And I was like, okay.
I recommend roasted red pepper hummus.
Yes, that is great.
I have no idea, because at this point I'm thinking to myself, great. The first thing I ever say to Bruce Dickinson was to ask him if hummus was any good. So I'm like, did I just blow my first chance? And so we put some on a plate, and he was like, you guys don't look like you're supposed to be here. Like, and we were like, I was like, no, I have an invitation, and he was like, okay, cool. And so he came over to where we were sitting and sat with us for like 10 minutes, talked, was just like super nice, ate some hummus with us. I hated it, but I love it now. But at the time I'm like, fine dining was Chili's, so, but he was a very, very cool guy. And he was very, he had this like, he has this aura to him that like in a situation like that, and I don't know if he's like that with Maiden now, because there's so many people But I always got the sense that because he was kind of freshly out of Maiden and he was doing his own thing and he was in this like intimate situation, and like I don't know that I could have ever met him or even ever meet him again that way, you know, but there was this sense to him that it was like like he was happy to be this person that he could actually just go up to a table and have a conversation with a couple of fans and not be like mauled, you know, or like jumped all over, you know, and so it was actually a really special experience, you know, kind of like the Alice Cooper thing though. Like, I don't know if meeting Bruce would be the same now, you know, being that, you know, there's so much intensity to Maiden's success again, but, you know, at that time, you know, it was a very modest period for him.
Yeah, because he didn't have Maiden behind him, so he had to do everything on his own, you know.
It had to be a very different world, that's for sure.
I'm in a scary world too, you know. I mean,
definitely.
because that was his first album, like officially out of Iron Maiden.
Right.
You
There's
know?
no Rod Smallwood organization behind him at that point, I'm assuming, you know. So
Rod wasn't still managing him at the time?
I don't know.
No.
I don't know. I
No,
don't know.
actually, Rod has always been associated with Iron Maiden as a unit with Steve Harris. So when Bruce left, you know, you didn't get Rod Smallwood. You know, he had his own label and his own management and, you know, like his own thing, you know, and that's a pretty bold move to do. You know, you leave one of the biggest heavy metal bands of, you know, in the world. But even at that point, Maiden's success was not, you know, I mean, they weren't dying at that point, but, you know, they had gone out on a pretty good bang with Fear of the Dark, but, you know, things were changing so drastically that, you know, I think, you know, people were just ready for change. And the musicians.
I have to agree with that. Even if Bruce Dickinson had stayed, I think the downward trajectory of sales would have happened anyway, in my opinion. So I agree with you. You know, I met Dokken when they did the Dysfunctional album, and it was at this place, Aces Records. You know, they had a record signing. It had all four guys there, and the publicist comes to me and my friends, and he goes, you know, I'm here. And you go, do you know the band? He goes, yeah. So he goes, all right, tell me who they are. So I open up the album and go, that's Don Dokken, George Lynch. He goes, oh, thanks. So he hands me the Dysfunctional CD, just gives it to me. I get up there. Don's cool. Jeff Pilson's cool. Mick Brown's great. They all signed. They're very nice. George Lynch is on the corner and he's all sulking there. And I think that was his kid with him. And he kind of just signs the album. And I go, you know that solo album, Sacred Groove? Yeah. Well, I'm the one who bought it. The one guy who bought it. Thanks.
Oh, my God.
Now,
there was a big bone of contention with Dokken around that time. I mean, he reluctantly did the reunion with them. And you could tell by Shadow Life that was more of like a George Lynch album.
Oh yeah.
And man, they suffered for it.
Well, I wish I still had the interview. Do you remember the magazine Metal Edge?
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. I grew up with Metal Edge.
Yeah. So there was around that time there was an interview, and you know George is very happy, and Don Dokken wasn't happy. He goes, I don't want to sound like Tool. I don't even know who they are. Blah. You know, it just keeps going on and on. You know, and it's what amazes me looking back is the album had just been released, and here they're doing these promotional interviews, and Don Dokken himself is already trashing his own album. He's not even pretending to like it, you know.
You know the funny thing, do you know what band that he produced in between Up From the Ashes and Dysfunction?
XYZ, wasn't
XYZ.
I was gonna say Saint Vitus.
Oh, did he produce Saint Vitus?
He produced Saint Vitus, and he's like, this is really slow. I'm like, well, it can't all be tooth and nail till the living end, you know. It's like, this is where metal's going, Don.
Well, Don could have made a pretty decent career as a producer. He produced Great White, XYZ. he produced a lot of demos for people, and he could have had a good career going as a producer, at least for a while. I mean, when melodic rock metal went away, you know, that might have been the end of that, or I guess he could have been hired by Frontier Records, but well, they didn't exist yet. But yeah, he could have had a good career as a producer. So
I think that's a great point, because you know, I wasn't a huge fan of him, but man, that debut XYZ album, I mean, that's got some great songs on it, but sonically, that's one of the best sounding records of that era.
well, what's ironic, it sounds better than some of the stuff now I like Dawkins' albums better, but I think he did a better job on producing that than the guys they hired to produce their own albums in set times. So, but you know, they were always at loggerheads with their, I mean, Tom Werwin quit Tooth and Nail, and they had to bring in Roy Thomas Baker, and Roy Thomas, you know, you know, it's ridiculous, the stories behind that particular band. Really is. So.
I know Razor Fisted. Sorry, Don. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. I was just gonna say
Razor Fisted an entire metal mythos on Dokken, and basically the contention with Don and George especially goes back to the recording of Breaking the Chains, the first pressing of it, because it's like him, Juan Crucier, Mick Brown, all flew to Germany, recorded the album. And they're like, well, we're going to go back to LA, which means we quit. So when the album got picked up by a major label and he needed a band, then he was like, well, you guys have to come on as session players, like not as a contracted full band. So
right.
George says one story, Don says another story. The truth is, well, history shows in favor of the side of Don Dokken himself.
Well, not only that, there's a bunch of interviews on YouTube, In Bloom, I think it's called. And they not only interviewed Don Dokken, but they interviewed Tom Werwin, interviewed Michael Wagner, some engineer. So it's kind of interesting that most people take up Don Dokken's side, where, you know, if you look at those old interviews, it seemed like Dokken was maybe a moody guy, but it turns out he was right, you know, and he's one of the few guys that's held on to his money. So that's something to be said about that. You know?
And married upwards.
Yeah. I mean,
he was definitely on the smarter end. Wayne, you're off. Are you a Dokken fan, or did everybody just ghost you?
I do not like Dokken.
Oh man,
I've tried.
He's not
try harder.
Dokken, that's for sure.
You know what though? It's fine, Wayne. I'll be honest with you, dude. Because you like the melodic rock, hard rock kind of stuff, right? I was a Dokken fan, but not like die hard, you know. Like, I mean, I was a typical kid in the 80s, you know. I had Breaking the Chains and Under Lock and Key and, you know, Tooth and Nail, and you know, and Back for the Attack, to me, I still consider to be one of the pinnacle hard rock albums of that era. Like, it's a incredible record. But man, the Don Dokken album, Up From the Ashes, like, I know people that couldn't stand Dokken heard that album and loved that record, because, I mean, sonically, it's literally one of the best sounding records. Like I listen to it now and it sounds incredible. Like, it doesn't sound dated or flat or anything, but like his band at the time for that solo record was just, you know, he had Mickey D, who at the time was in King Diamond, on drums. Then he had Peter Baltiz on bass from Accept, and then he had John Norum.
Yep, on guitar, right.
Yeah. Billy White, I think, right?
Billy White, who was in Watchtower with Jason McMaster from Dangerous Toys. And then he had Don Dokken. So it was like a super group of musicians that a lot of people didn't really, you know, they weren't like commercially big musicians.
Right.
But man, that was like for the best players that someone could play with. And I don't know how they got linked up. I don't know if Dokken himself had the vision for it, But man, that one album right there, and they only made that one record. But Wayne, I would challenge you to listen to that record.
Mickey D's on there, so I have to check it out.
So,
I mean-
Wayne, do you think it's the age thing? Because I know I'm older than you, so you think it's just an age thing where that kind of metal just didn't appeal to you when you started getting into that music?
I like music from that period of time, so no, I just don't like the vocals, and it's a lot of it just sounded cheesy. Like that. What was that song that they did for one of the horror movies?
Dream Warriors.
Dream Warriors.
I don't like that song. I think it's terrible. I think it's stupid.
See, for me, Tooth and Nail, I will willingly admit it is one of my 10 favorite albums ever. So, like, I can remember listening to that and just loving it and thinking, my God, this is what good music is supposed to sound like. Wayne, I'm sure you'll disagree with me. That's okay. You're entitled to be wrong. But still feel that way.
What was the song that we did? What was the song that we did with the Rats Out Review Theater? Which one was that? The Dawkins song.
We didn't do it yet.
No, we did do it.
We were supposed to do Breaking the Chains. We never
we did do it.
We did do it during the 5 video episode with that typo negative bot thing at the end. Yeah. But that the problem with that episode was that because like James and Greg and you and I were talking over the video.
I heard enough. I heard enough.
Well, I just bring up the age.
We botched it.
I'm just bring up the age thing because I started getting into metal when I was about 12, and I sorry I didn't get to hear the intro totally, Don, when you got introduced. So I take it your book is about your history with the music and your discovery, or
Yeah. Like I was telling the guy, so I'm 48,
Okay.
and so when I started listening to metal, which was like, my first introduction to metal was Twisted Sister,
Okay, so that was your gateway band
on
okay.
Friday night videos,
Yeah.
and from then on it was game over, Twisted Sister, Rat, Quiet Riot, Kiss,
Was it to you like a rebellious thing to like the music? I mean, I know obviously you like the music because you're still listening to it, so it wasn't a fad or any of that nonsense, but was it to you a form of rebellion, or was it just the music just moved you, or all of the above, or none of the above, or in your opinion?
Honestly, as cheesy as it sounds, it was kind of and like, so I'm not Christian or anything like that, but it was almost kind of like a spiritual awakening at a very young age, when you don't really quite understand what a spiritual awakening is.
Right.
Because I just remember like the very popular music at the time, and you were talking like 83, 84.
Right.
All Night Long by Lionel Richie.
Yes, thank you. You're talking like Lionel Richie, Duran Duran, Prince, God, and even if you wanted to go into AOR stuff, you're talking like REO Speedwagon,
right?
Right. And so, I grew up in a very musical household because my dad, listened to a lot of music, mostly folk music,
right?
But when I was hearing these songs that so many kids were like, like raving about, and it seems to be the popular thing, I just remember thinking like, if I liked this, then maybe I could be accepted, but I don't like this and I don't want to really listen to it. And then, I hear Twisted Sister for the first time, I'm hearing like, We're Not Gonna Take It. And all of a sudden I'm going like, what? Like, this is me. Like this was like, it was almost like it was all the feelings I had as a kid expressed through someone else's music. And so, it really wasn't so much a rebellious thing as much as it was like a connection, like an awakening,
Yeah,
like,
I get it.
Like I could hear these other songs on the radio, Bryan Adams, whatever, and I'd say, yeah, it's a good song. But it didn't really do anything for me, We're Not Gonna Take It.
Well, let's face it.
Sent me to the record store buying Stay Hungry on cassette, and I listened to it all day. I listened to it in the morning before I went to school. I listened to it when I got home after school. I listened to it at night to go to sleep. You know what I mean? Because it just, it had that effect on me. And then all of a sudden you start hearing, oh my God, Twisted Sister. Well, what else is out there? okay, you know, my friend's older brother, you know, is introduced because I didn't have an older brother, and he's telling me like, oh, you should check out this guy named Dio. You know, you should check out Iron Maiden. You should check out Scorpion. You know, and all of a sudden he's kind of sending me home with all these like a stack of like Maxell dubbed cassettes, you know, just full of these bands. I'm just listening to one after the other, going like, yeah, this is the missing piece of my life. This is what I needed, you know.
Well, it's music to empowers you. Nobody listens to this music to sit around and feel sad, despite what some people may think, even when subject matter is dark. In a strange way, it's sort of uplifting. So I get it.
Unless you're a Morrissey fan, then we can't help you.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about
that. I do like I have to hold my hand up. I do like the Smiths, but
as do I, but let's
they
face
can be
facts.
a bit whiny. They're a bit whiny. They're
I mean, obviously, you know, you know, Wayne knows. I have a very broad palette, you know, of music and bands that I like. But you know, I mean, like, I guess to answer your question, kind of like in a nutshell, would be, you know, I can't fight this feeling anymore by REO Speedwagon didn't make me feel anything. But man, Last in Line, I was like, fuck yeah, I am the last in line. I get this, you know, and then you get pumped, you know. God, look at me. I'm 48 years old. I'm talking like I just discovered Dio again, you know.
That's the thing, like REO Speedwagon. I never understood that. Did people actually like that band? I didn't like the songs.
They were huge.
Don't tell that to Ralph.
I know, but
they were fucking huge.
They were huge.
I don't like that stuff.
Wayne, they were filling up arenas, Wayne, and
really
they got wiped out by the Quiet Riots and Twisted Sister and
Rat
Dio and all that stuff took it over. But it was huge. It was huge. I mean, I think the only ARO band of that era that can fill up places is what, Journey, and I'm not sure if Foreigner can, but I know Journey can. And
Journey can.
That's it, right?
And
I don't know.
Foreigner can.
Yeah.
I know Journey's actually going on a tour in the spring with half the tour dates is with Billy Idol, the other half is with Toto. Meanwhile, didn't Steve Lukather just said he was bringing the band up? I'm sorry, point of contention here.
There's another band
actually
that stand Toto.
Toto was one of those bands for me that was like Journey. That like, you know, when I was younger, to me, like Journey was like, you know, school dance music.
Right.
And I didn't go to school dances for many obvious reasons, like besides being fat and full of pimples and bad hair. But you know, so to me, Journey was like, you know, date music, you know. But then all of a sudden you get older, you know, and you know, many years later, a friend of mine's like, dude, you gotta listen to Frontiers, dude, you gotta listen to Next, you gotta listen to, you know, like the debut Journey album. And I'm going, you know, and and then all of a sudden I'm listening to it, I'm like, this is great shit. Why isn't this the shit they're known for? And then you realize, oh yeah, because this wouldn't like go over well, you know, on the radio, you know.
Yeah, I just got into Journey maybe only 10 years ago or so.
That's what same here. Yeah.
And then to find out they started like this big progressive band, you know, it's weird. What do you say, Manny?
Yeah. Well, they're a spinoff of Santana. So yeah, it's not that surprising. So
I had
3 or 4
idea.
of the guys came from Santana. Yeah, they're Neil Sean, Greg Rowley, and God, who was the other guy? Who was the other guy who was in Santana? Do you remember? Anyway, they spun off from Santana.
Ainsley Dunbar.
Yeah, thank you. Because they're on Santana 3 and Abrascus or whatever you say that album, and then they broke off and formed Journey, and well, we know the rest. So Greg Raleigh. You get older, it's funny you mentioned that you have a you're right, him too. You mentioned you have a wide musical palette, but I think most hard rock metal fans do, more so than people are giving credit. We just have such a passion for this music, it kind of overshadows most everything else we love. But you talk most fans, you wouldn't be surprised. You'd be surprised it's in their collection. Probably not really, but most people outside of that would be.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think so too. Especially now, you know, like
Yeah,
as we were
yeah.
saying, as we get older too, we get into different things. I didn't like Genesis that much when I was younger, but I love them now. And like
Mhm.
Journey and even the Beatles. Like I hated the Beatles when I was younger. And then
Yeah.
within the last few years, I don't know, maybe it's just the memories from the Beatles when I was younger, because I over listened to it when I was younger. So I got sick of it. So I don't
Oh,
know
yeah.
if it's just
Well, that
memories
probably
and I want
did
to hear
you
it
in,
again.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it did. But now listen to it, and then I'm into George Harrison and John Lennon, and then the Paul McCartney stuff, and you know, just funny, you know.
The best thing I
Well,
learned to
you're
do.
also a musician, Wayne, so
And that's the other thing too
that
that I
also part of it.
yeah
Yeah.
The best
I
thing
feel
I
like
learned to
being a
do was shut
musician
the radio
totally-
off.
yeah
I feel like being a
exactly.
musician totally it changes a lot of how you listen to other music a lot of times, you know, and you know.
I think so too, because I listen at work. I put my phone on and I hit shuffle on it all the time. I don't really usually play albums.
Mhm.
And some weird things will come on, like Mr. Bungle comes on and they're like, what the fuck is this shit? You know, what are you listening to? How can you listen to this? It's just noise. I'm like, this is awesome. What are you telling me it's crap for? This is fucking great. So you know,
Don't listen to Phantomos then.
no, yeah, that's even worse. But I like that stuff, you know, but they don't get it. And some
Mhm.
other stuff too that regular people just don't understand. But I'm like, you know what? I play music, so that's why I hear things differently, you know, I guess. I don't know. It's just weird.
You goddamn normies.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
but
you-
I think Manny said something earlier that really stuck out, and that I say a lot of times, is that I generally have found that fans of metal music are the ones that tend to have a broader palette in music, but not only a broader palette, but are totally okay with admitting that they have a broad palette in music, you know, like, I mean, one of my favorite things to do is like, especially if I'm interviewing, you know, a band or an artist or whatever, is I like to ask them some, especially if it's a hard rock or metal band, like, what's your favorite hard non-metal, or, you know, what's your favorite kind of music, you know? And man, I have heard everything from someone say that like one of their favorite albums was Love Deluxe by Sade. You know, I had somebody tell
that's
me
excellent.
I had someone tell me that nothing like the Sun by Sting was in their top 3 albums, which is one of my favorite albums. I had Tom Hunting actually delay talking to the drummer from Exodus. I had Tom Hunting actually hold his finger up before an interview because he wanted to finish hearing Open Arms by Journey. And when it ended, he looked up at me and he goes, I fucking love Journey. I was like, but you know, and he was the drummer from one of the most legendary thrash bands, like 30 minutes before he's supposed to go on stage listening to Journey on the tour, you know. So like, I don't know, I've always found that metal heads and metal fans are more fun to talk to about music, because, you know, we either agree to disagree or whatever, but even then, like, it's like there's a mutual respect of what we all like. And you know,
I could definitely
Well, I
attest
also
to
think
that.
it's interesting, and yeah, I also think it's interesting. This is a genre where the fans are interested not in the history of not only the band but the genre itself. And even when they go back to something like Led Zeppelin, they don't stop at Led Zeppelin. They go further. Muddy Waters, you know, Robert Johnson. So it's interesting group of fans that we have been accused in the 80s and even in the 90s not caring about music, how much we actually care about it and how much we, you know, we don't just collect it just to have it, to look at the vinyl or the CD. We actually listen to it, but we are also interested in the history of the artists. And I find that interesting that, you know, we respect these legacies, you know, and we argue about these legacies, you know, Van Halen or Black Sabbath or even Exodus, you know, what version do you like? You know, oh, they lost it at this point. I think all that stuff's kind of interesting, especially at, you know, where I'm at age-wise.
I could
pretty
add,
old.
I could add to that, Manny. I mean, I'm a huge Eddie Van Halen fan. So like when Wayne brought up the idea of us covering Atomic Punk, I was all over that. It was because of Van Halen where somebody asked him, who's your favorite guitar player? And he said Alan Holdsworth.
Yeah.
And I had never heard Alan Holdsworth until after he passed away. And now I can't stop listening to Alan Holdsworth. So, you know, it's like, I mean, I grew up loving jazz music like Weather Report or Return to Forever or anything by Stanley Clarke. But hearing Alan Holdsworth do some of the craziest stuff that I ever heard with some of the best drummers in the world. I mean, Chad Wackerman, Gary Husband, Virgil Donati, you know, just, you know, I have to thank Eddie for that, because if it wasn't for him, I would have never been exposed to hearing about him in the first place.
And you're the one that picked Atomic Punk.
I discovered.
I picked Atomic Punk?
Yes.
Oh.
I really barely even knew that song.
Could have fooled me. You killed it.
Yeah, I know. It was
nobody rules these streets at night but him. Yeah.
Sorry, that's as DLR as I'll get.
Yeah, that was a fun one to cover. What were we saying, Manny, before I cut you off there?
Oh no, nothing. I was just saying, and I think it's interesting we're into the history, but you know, like I just, you know, I think you just saw Yngwie, Lou, and I looked into classical music because of Yngwie Malmsteen and Randy Rhoads. You know, I got into the blues because of Led Zeppelin. Granted, maybe they're not purely a metal band, but certainly a proto-metal band, and that's what they were labeled magazines when I was a kid. Anyway, it's interesting how this music just leads you to different paths, not just with the obvious path. All the time, so I always found that interesting.
Yeah, that's what interested me too. Yeah.
What does it do for you? I mean, Wayne, like what is some of your like those bands for you?
Like the non-metal bands?
Or not even like non-metal, but like what bands have you discovered because of other bands?
Oh my God. Well, Halloween, again, they have helped me discover so many bands. It's insane. Like half of this collection back here has something to do with Halloween. And I went, you know, just looked up anything that was like, if there was like maybe a member that joined for like a tour or something, I would look up and see what band he was in. And then that would lead me to another band and another band, another band. So things like that. And Halloween just has this long history of just, even Lou, on last week's episode, you said that somebody from Halloween was in another band, or they had like some kind of connection with Halloween. I forget what it was. It was something Michael Kiske, I think.
Was it? Oh, it was like
it
6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon with Halloween and Def Leppard is what it was. Yeah. It was Michael Kiske's solo album had Adrian Smith, formerly of Iron Maiden, at the time. So we're talking 96, right. And Adrian Smith had admitted in an interview a couple of years ago that at one point prior to Vivian Campbell, either him or John Sykes of Whitesnake and Blue Murder and Thin Lizzy fame, one of them was actually asked to be the replacement guitarist for Steve Clark in Def Leppard. Right. So that's where the connection was. Oh, wow. So it's 3 degrees of separation.
Some kind of connection.
I did not know that about John Sykes. I would think you would avoid him no matter how talented he is, because he just doesn't seem to stick around a project very long.
No. Now you'd avoid him. At the time, I mean, you know, he was a hot commodity.
Well, yeah, I'll give you that, but
that's a difficult cat to work with, man. I don't know personally, but you know, I mean, you know, that dude is, but he's a talent for sure. But
oh yeah, no doubt.
Wayne, I was thinking about. I'm guessing you love the Avantasia.
Yes,
stuff.
yep, I do. Yep. And then I found a lot of bands from there. I found the band Magnum, because Bob Catley's.
There's like 30 bands in Avantasia. Wow.
Yeah,
like something ridiculous.
Yeah, because I never heard of that. Have you heard of the band Magnum before?
No.
Oh, you definitely check them out. But they've been around since like the 70s, and I never heard about them.
Well, I heard of them because I used to get Kerrang magazine in the 80s. So yeah.
But
yeah,
I
you're
never,
right. They've been around a long time.
very long time, and not too many people knew about them. But then Ed Guy did a cover of one of their songs, and then Bob Catley's on the Advantageous stuff, and I'm like, I gotta check out this Magnum, because if they're working with the guy and they're covering the songs, they got to have some good stuff, and they do. They're awesome band.
I heard of Magnum because UFO's Misdemeanor album had Jim Simpson on drums, and he was a drummer in Magnum prior to
He
that
was
release.
for a short time. But Magnum over here, I don't even think they released an album in the States. I mean, I can't say for sure, but
They have, just no one knows about them.
Right. Yeah, nobody knows. Nobody cares.
They're definitely a European centric band. Absolutely.
I'm super impressed because you guys have officially lost me, and I love that. I love it when I'm like, okay, I have no idea what they're talking about now, because the minute we get off this, I'm gonna be like, okay, now I need to know about Magnum.
All right, back to John Sykes. Anyway.
No, but see, this is why I love doing stuff like this and talking with folks like you guys, because it's again, because it kind of goes back to what Manny was talking about, like our appreciation for history, and wanting to know, the lineage of music, and it's not all about just the individual. It's like this gigantic family tree. I mean, that would just be endless. Like you couldn't. I mean, you'd have there's not enough branches to even create a family tree, I think, for hard rock and metal.
No.
Because every day I feel like I'm hearing of a band that I never knew existed, and then someone's like, "Wow, but they've been around for like 30 years."
I know.
I'm like,
always
never heard of them.
I tried building a hard rock family tree, and it all stems from Black Sabbath and like the millions of offshoots of bands that certain members were involved with. Yeah, I was typing that on my computer, and like an idiot, I forgot to hit save.
Well, then because then
I gave up on it.
Deep Purple goes into the Deep Purple family tree, which then goes into the Rainbow family tree, and then man, it's never.
And then it just starts, brand. I mean, just it's amazing. Like I had actually earlier this year, I decided I wanted to maybe do like a follow-up book, but instead of the book being about me, I wanted to do like a lineage of occult rock. It's like one of these genres of music that is very rarely touched on when it comes to talking about hard rock and metal, but like you go back to the 60s and you had bands like Coven, and you had bands like Black Widow, and I mean, both Coven, Coven used to have a guy crucified on a cross back on their stage, and this was back in like 67, 68, and then the band Black Widow in I think 70 used to have a full-on like a satanic where they would beckon all the demons, like at the intro of their song, and then at the end of the show they had a full-on sacrifice of a nude woman. And actually the rumor
there you go, guys.
Yes,
he's got it.
That is, I've got the Witchcraft album too.
No.
Incredible music, but like it's a genre of music that's lost.
Yeah.
And so, again, kind of going back to like the fascination of history, my obsessive disorder kicks in, man, and then all of a sudden I'm just like, okay, I want to know where those bands got it, because we're also talking about bands who were either peers or slightly predated Sabbath,
right?
And so when you get a band like Coven, you're like, okay, so where did you get the idea to crucify a guy on stage and read from a satanic, like incantations,
right.
I mean, like it was insane. But like,
Right.
again, because the history is so skewed though on that genre of music, I started reaching out to try to contact a lot of these people, and they're dead. Like,
You know,
I mean, it
Jinx.
sucks to say, but like if you think about it, they're all in their, like at this point, like they're into their 70s.
Right. Yeah.
They'd have to be, yeah.
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 And I'd say the only one that I could even get a contact for was, I think, the guitar player from the band Black Widow and Jinx Dawson from Coven, and neither one expressed any interest in really wanting to talk. And
Really, I'm surprised that Jinx wouldn't.
oh yeah, Jinx.
Because doesn't she have a version of Coven running around now? Or
She
Yeah,
does.
she's got
She's like the only member left, and it's all like, new guys.
Yeah, they just did a show over Halloween. I don't remember where it was, but but I'm not going to give up on it totally, because I feel like, if you can get one person, kind of like what we were talking about, if you can get one person that can kind of start that tree, and they can tell you, oh, these were some of the peers, this is where we got inspired from, because there's this weird gap of like, Coven and Black Widow. And then, and then you get the kind of sprinkling of that kind of occult stuff through the folk scene, like with Donovan and, Buffy St. Marie, which they weren't full on occult, but they were talking, working with this kind of esoteric.
Well, you got to keep in mind during this late 60s, people were getting interested in the occult, and they were getting interested in what later became New Age. And
right, yeah.
I don't think it was a form of rebelling. I think people were just searching for something that was outside of the traditional Christianity. Not that I'm putting down Christianity or anything like that, but people were just interested. So, the thing about music, in my opinion, is music reflects what's going on out there, not the other way around. Sure, it's exaggerated sometimes, whether it's heavy metal or hip hop, but it's not created out of a vacuum, including bands like Coven. This is stuff that was happening in the culture at the time. And I'm talking about lyrical content and what have you. So,
Well, I know Jinx
I found it
was
interesting, though, that your gateway. Yeah. Go
No,
ahead,
sorry,
James
Manny.
Dawson. You were saying, Luke?
No, I didn't. I thought
No,
you had
we'll
complete.
get back to that.
Okay, well, I know Jinx Dawson herself was.
No, I did complete that. Thought I was going.
Is there a delay here or something?
A little bit.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
She grew up, I think, in pagan circles, so the music of Coven really reflected her. Like it was legitimately her that it was reflecting. The ironic thing is that the Witchcraft album came out in '69, a year before Black Sabbath's album. They had a song called Black Sabbath on the album, and they had a band member called Oz Osbourne in the band. Tony Iommi himself was asked in '86 while promoting Seventh Star by Martha Quinn. She took out the Coven Witchcraft record, showed it to him, and he's like, I never heard of them. And I was like, are you hiding something, Tony? I mean, you are the godfather of metal riffs, but are you hiding something?
Maybe not. He's not the one who wrote the lyrics, so.
Yeah. I don't know how true it is, but I heard an old, like, it's like I'm sure it's an urban legend of sorts, but the Black Widow, who had an album, they were putting their album at the same time Sabbath was putting out the debut album, and that Black Widow's live performance was way over the top and like too shock rockish. And they basically were like, okay, we need, one, like there's going to be a band that's going to have to go over and break over in the States. And it was going to be between a Black Widow and Black Sabbath, and it was Black Sabbath. And which I can kind of see too, because if you go on YouTube, look up Black Widow Sacrifice live. It was actually recorded for like a BBC show, and it's the entire album performed in its, performed with the theatric and everything. And even for then, like, I'm looking at it and I'm going, I live in the South, dude. Like if that would have came down here, man, they would have burned that tour bus and like, or whatever. Like, I mean, you couldn't have got the Bible people away from that venue,
Yeah.
It's just interesting. It's like an interesting piece of, history, the whole occult rock movement. And I think I told you, Wayne, that like there's like a whole movement of these artists, like even coming out over the past, decade, bands like,
You
from
got
Finland and Sweden, you get like Jess and the Ancient Ones and,
Lucifer.
Lucifer, Lycanthropy, Children of the Sun,
Yeah.
the Nephila, a lot of this kind of psych rock / occult esoteric music. And so it's this whole new younger generation of people. And of course I'm going like, okay, so where are you guys coming from? And then the influences that they're telling me about, I'm like, okay, so now I'm working backwards, but there's still this like, it's like I've got here.
Right.
And there's this whole area in here that I'm like, that's what I want filled in. But somewhere along the line, it's like, it could have just stopped and then started. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it
it's
had
kind
to
of just how
carry
like
on
it is
somewhere.
Right.
Because that's how Ghost started out too. They were kind of like that type of band. Are you a fan of Ghost?
No.
All right. Well,
At
we'll
least
see you
he's
guys.
honest, Wayne.
No, but honestly, what I did love about Ghost, and I will give them credit for it, is that Ghost kind of brought back something that a lot of the newer genre of bands that play this kind of music are doing, weren't, and they took it to like a very theatrical level. And so in my mind, had a band like Coven or Black Widow or something like that had started in the last decade, that I could imagine that that would be what these bands would have performed like, because the crude nature of their performances in the 60s and 70s was only because that's what they had. They were using shit they had in their garages, and like wood sheds and everything. But you look at Ghost and all of a sudden you've got like it's like a mock
it's
Christian church that's full of satanic imagery and satanic stained glass. And I'm going, okay, that's cool. I mean, because I liked the fact that they were able to kind of translate that,
Yeah. And again,
I don't like their music, but I like the genre, and I like that they've used that ability to turn it into a spectacle.
Right.
I also think musically they're kind of a throwback in a lot of ways, in my opinion. It's kind of interesting too. You mentioned looking backwards. I think a lot of bands are looking backwards. Greta Van Fleet's a perfect example of that, if not the most obvious. Rival Sons, Ghost. There's a few heavier bands I can't think of right now. Blackstone Cherries looking back on Southern rock. So I think it's interesting that a lot of these bands are kind of looking backwards that are so much younger. I mean, these guys are in their, I guess Rival Sons and Ghosts are probably a little older, but in their teens or 20s, and they're looking back at this music that some of it didn't even sell that well. Coven's a perfect example. I mean, if Coven sold 100,000 albums in their entire discography put together, I'd be shocked, so it's interesting.
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of the questions I've asked a lot of some of these younger artists is the same thing, I would say like, how does a 20-something-year-old, play music that sounds like, esoteric Jethro Tull, dark folk rock kind of stuff? And a lot of times their answer is, oh, well, when I grew up, because these kids are young, and they're like, oh, when I was growing up, like Metallica's Reload was out, and all of a sudden, that's what they were into. But then I'm closer to their parents' age, you know. And so what happens is they go into their parents' record collection and they're finding like the kind of shit we were just talking about. And I'm sure that those kids are at some, you know, and they were just like at some point, we're just like, this is so much better music than what everyone's playing. So now you got these 20 something, you know, early, mid, late 20s kids playing this music that, you know, predates them by 30 years.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
sounds
which
like
is-
music. Not like, you know, the new stuff today. It's just everything sounds the same, you know.
Yeah, but when we start saying stuff like that, then we sound like
I
the
know,
old
but you know what?
guys.
I am old, so just deal with
You know,
it. But it's
well,
true,
I'm
though.
old too, but
It's true. It's
doesn't
true,
mean I
though.
want to
You
sound
tell
like an
me.
old
You
guy.
tell me what is the
That's-
difference between Five Finger Death Punch and fucking like Nickelback? They sound the same, except one has a growling vocals or whatever, he's screaming, yelling, and the other guy just sounds, you know,
They're both
whatever.
shitty.
But they
That's
both
the-
suck, you know.
But they would be shitty if it was 1985 and they came out. They're just a shitty bands, you know.
But, you know,
Five Finger Death. I don't understand their popularity.
I don't either.
You know, I can understand Nickelbacks because it's, you know, catchy, but so is VD, and I don't want that either. But you know, I don't get it.
I mean, Five Finger Death Punch, I think they just you know, like a lot of the young military people just relate to them.
Yeah.
So I can respect that. I mean, I'm just not
don't.
really a fan of their music.
Yeah, they suck.
I always thought Five Finger
I'll
Death
have to
Punch.
take your word.
Yeah, I always thought Five Finger Death Punch was like the guys who used to kick my ass in high school
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
for liking heavy metal, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden decided to play heavy metal, and I'm just like, no,
Yeah.
no, you can't come in here. Why are you here? You know what I mean? It's
That's
like,
exactly
you know,
what it
it's like
is.
it's like you like metal. Come here, you fucking punk, and then they beat you up, and all of a sudden they're like, we're metal as fuck, and I'm like, oh no, dude, don't take my music away. You already took my lunch money. Why are you taking my music too?
That's what happened to me in college. I remember that I was cool with the dean of communications at St. John's University. She knew I was on the executive board of the college radio station, and she said, "Hey, look, my nephew wants to join the radio station." I'm like, "Okay, send him my way. It's fine." In comes in this Chad with like the freaking you know, frosted tips and the red Adidas jumpsuit, you know, and the $200 Nikes, and you know, I forgot what shirt. I think I was wearing a Cradle of Filth shirt at the time. And he's like, "Oh, you like metal?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, I like metal too." I'm like, "Really? What bands?" He's like, Edema, Corn, The Biscuit. I said, "Get the fuck out of my radio station." I'm like, "I'm not dealing with that."
I love Axe body spray too. You know,
I have nothing against Axe. I can afford it, so it's okay.
But just before we wrap up this show, just want a couple more things from your book. I have some notes here. You got big into glam bands.
oh, absolutely.
And I don't like glam bands. I like some of the new glam bands. I like
Mhm.
Hardcore Superstar and Crash Diet and some stuff like
Mhm.
that. I don't like the old stuff though. I hate Poison. Never liked them ever. But
Oh, yeah.
I did like Slaughter. And you went to a concert and you didn't like Slaughter. Why don't you like? How did you not like Slaughter?
How do you not like Poison?
Oh my god! Because they look like
You're not
women.
like Duncan. I mean,
They look like women. They look like goddamn women.
Thank you.
How do you not like?
Oh,
I don't know.
thanks, Lou. No, but what was it about? What was it about Slaughter? How did you not like Slaughter? I don't know.
You know, it's interesting. You know, just to kind of backtrack about what you were saying about Poison, is that like, you know, as a hard rock and a metal fan, like I don't believe in guilty pleasures or even regrets, and I've never been embarrassed to say that I had like a liking or an appreciation of things, you know. And you know, to me, Poison was like, I don't know. Now I look back on it, it's almost kind of like they were like Great Value Kiss, you know, like. But it was fun, you know. It was a fun show. It was fun music. It was like you didn't have to have you know, like I loved Queensryche,
Yeah.
You know, but listening to Rage for Order, like I felt uneducated. You know, listening to Open Up and Say Ah, I actually felt smarter than the band. You know what I mean? And so
this is over.
but it was fun, you know? And I think that what happened to me with Slaughter was, unfortunately, I feel like this happened to a lot of bands around that time, is that not only were they like super hyped, but they put out this album that sounded so fantastic. And it was so slick. And the vocals were just, you know, like I mean, dude, like I still love, man, I will listen to Up All Night, Eye to Eye, you know, what Loaded Gun, you know, like off that first album. Like I still enjoy listening to those songs. But I saw that band live and they were terrible. Like they did not even come close to sounding like that album. And to me, even as a young music fan, I was just like, that sucks. That's terrible. That's bad. Like, you know, they were on a triple bill with the Bullet Boys and Poison, and Bullet Boys opened. And I fucking love the Bullet Boys, man. Like as far as like those first two Bullet Boys albums to me are just incredible. But they sounded amazing. They were great live. They were incredible. But then Slaughter came on. They had the bigger production, you know, because they were the second band on the bill. But they sounded terrible. And I've seen them live on accident 4 times. You know, and on accident meaning like they happened to be on like one of these like mega hair bales or whatever, you know, like the Poison tour, Cinderella, whatever. And there was always like Slaughter was in there somewhere. And you know, never saw them do a good show live. And I think that just always reflects badly for me. And then I can't go enjoy an album. Because when I listen to the album, then I go like, that's not real.
You know? I get you now. All right. I understand it now. All right. Which is actually why when I was younger, like I wanted to kind of go to concerts, but my mother she went to a few when she was younger. And she was like, you know what? They're not the same. Like when you hear the albums, when you go live, when you go see them live, it's not this. It doesn't sound the same. They're always changing the songs up, or you know, whatever. Like you said with Slaughter, they just don't sound good. And I was always afraid of going to see like one of my favorite bands and then being really disappointed and not wanting to even like them anymore after that, you know. And I could see that's how kind of you are with Slaughter, I guess. So.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing with Poison too is that, like I said, and I'm a fan, but I can actually say this is that like if you listen to a Poison record. Like it's hard to get much worse than that live. Do you know what I mean? Like you'd have to be really terrible, but they never tried to be virtuosos, you know what I mean? Or anything like that. So like, you know, I always thought Bret Michaels sounded great live. I thought the band sounded good. They were energetic. It was fun. And I don't care if a band sounds like an album or doesn't, but if you're not as good as a unit as you are on a recording, then that just kind of shows me that you don't have that raw ability or that raw talent to just be real.
Yeah, when I finally started going to concerts, Lou, you have to unmute yourself before you speak.
I have one guilty pleasure. I was coerced to buying this one album.
What was that? Oh, that album sucks. Throw that away.
Oh, I meant to tell you, I was just spitting that today, man. That's a good
so sorry.
Project Resurrect Bandcamp.com.
Thank you.
Dude, if I would have known you back in like 90 and you lived here in Atlanta, you would have definitely been my drummer. You would have been the drummer in the worst metal band in Atlanta. It would have been awesome.
And I would have been in it.
Actually, yeah, you would have. You would have been the one good guy in the band.
Please don't fill his head.
I only speak the truth, unfortunately.
You're the only one I have ever heard or admit that they like Crocus.
I like Crocus.
Oh my God! Seriously?
Yeah, we did a couple.
Okay,
we did.
I'm gonna pull a Manny here. Hold on.
I actually like Crocus, Wayne. I mean,
you do?
Eat the Rich. Yeah.
All right, that's a good song. They have a few good songs, but as a whole, as a band, no.
We did because all their stuff sounds like it was written by someone else.
Right.
Yeah. Which
We
is
did
why I
the-
like them. They're like a great tribute band.
Back when Uncle Saxon was on the show, he picked an album. It was one Crocus album. I can't remember which one, and some other band. And it was
I've
okay.
seen that guy. I've not
This
talked
is-
to him forever. Wow.
4 of the best hard rock records.
All right, now you're getting out of hand. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so here's the thing, man, is that Crocus was Crocus was to AC/DC what Kingdom Come was to Led Zeppelin, basically.
Right.
You know, Crocus.
I'll give you
was
that.
like-
I'll give you that.
Crocus was like, I mean, you're talking, I mean, they came out in like the late 70s, you know, so you're talking, you know, Mark Storace was Bon Scott, you know, but like, you know, I challenge anybody to write a song that's as good, if not better, than Screaming in the Night, man. Even if you don't like Crocus, that is a great song.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah,
It's also
Crocus-
on every Masters of Metal compilation ever, which is how I even got into Crocus back in the
Well,
80s.
well, thank God, or Crocus would be washing dishes. But you know, no, I do like Crocus, but their history goes back. They have albums like in 1973, and
Yeah.
with Chris Von Rohr, whatever his name's singing on it. Yeah.
Matter of fact, the one of the ones I have was I think it was 70. Which one was this one?
No, it's
this
one
by
I owned one of
Suicide.
those. I owned
Yeah,
the one with the girl.
it
on the
goes. I
front
mean,
cover.
these guys, but I mean, you know, Crocus was kind of like that. You know, that even though they don't usually get included, they were part of that kind of
Right.
earlier wave. You know, like, you know, you get that like early Judas Priest.
they were, yeah.
Early Scorpions. You know, early. Who's another one? You know, Scorpions, Priest.
Except
Except or you know, or even Saxon. You know, like that first Saxon album is like almost a progressive hard rock album. You know, and it's, you know, they were part of this movement. But yeah, anyway.
No, you're right. It's
my
kinda-
my friend, my best friend gets pissed when I go on tangents about this, because he's like, dude, how long can you fucking talk about Crocus and Kingdom Come, man? It's 2 of the worst fucking bands ever. You can like talk about it for an hour. But anyway.
Well, it's interesting because Crocus, in 1980, then suddenly hard rock metal was international. You had Crocus from Switzerland, Accept Germany, Loudness Japan. Actually, I didn't know there were other Japanese bands for a long time, you know, than Ezio. But I mean, like Earthshaker. Anyway, that's another episode.
Anthem would probably be number 3, I would think, right, Manny?
What's that?
Anthem, I would probably say, would be like the number 3 Japanese metal export.
Absolutely. Yeah. There was Bow Wow. Anyway, other countries I'm not naming right now, but Vandenberg. Anyway, it's just kind of interesting. All of a suddenly, this genre became international in just a couple of years. You know, after the scene burst out. Oh, Wayne, I think you had more questions for Don.
I did. Yeah. So coming to a head here. What was the other thing? Well, I was reading your book. I would notice some of the bands that you would talk about, like this band, Captain Beyond. I would put that on. I would listen to it as I'm reading your book, and they're a pretty cool band. I when I went to it, I noticed the album cover. I've seen it before. I never checked it out, but that was a pretty good band.
Yeah, Captain Beyond's a real special band to me. If you read the book, it was like one of those things, like, you know, where you know, you get into that, right, you know, that frame of mind, and then you listen to a band, and then all of a sudden it's like they've totally penetrated your brain. And like that album, that debut album, Manny, are you familiar with Captain Beyond at all?
Absolutely. Rod Evans of Deep Purple was the singer, and the guy from Iron Butterfly played on it.
Yeah, Lee Dorman and
thank you. Yeah.
Larry
Manny
Reinhardt
knows his shit, man.
and then Bobby Caldwell, who was in the Allman Brothers Band and Johnny Winter End, and he you know, that was like a super group. But again, kind of similar to what we were talking about earlier, was like with the Dokken thing. It was like a super group of musicians that nobody really knew who they were. It was just a great band of musicians, you know?
Yeah, that album, I didn't discover that till I guess the 90s, you know. and I picked it up solely because it had a Deep Purple connection, kind of like Wayne with his Halloween. Well, I'm pretty bad that way with Deep Purple, so I can relate, with that.
Blackmore's one of my top 5.
Same here.
No,
Definitely.
but that Captain Beyond album, exactly, Wayne, like what you did, that was one of those things that I really tried to, I hoped to do with the book, was just to kind of share all the different experiences that I've had, growing up over the years, listening to metal, listening to new bands, because, as I'm sure all three of you guys can, attest to this, but like, there's nothing more exciting than turning someone on to a band that you love that they've never heard.
Yeah.
And even though you want nothing more than for them to love them, if you don't, you've at least made one more person aware of a band's existence,
Right. Yeah.
And so like, the Captain Beyond thing, like what Wayne was saying, was similar to like how I got into Captain Beyond. Somebody told me, was like, have you ever heard Captain Beyond? And I'm like, no. And the guy's like, never heard Captain Beyond, and all of a sudden I was like, I don't know. I've never heard Captain, like what happened? And, it's about sharing those experiences,
Right. Continue talking. I gotta get something.
Oh yeah. But, that Captain Beyond album was super. That's cool. I didn't realize you were such a big Purple fan, man. Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh yeah, I've got 1 on vinyl and 2 on CD, and they're all packed away. My vinyl's over there. I just didn't feel like digging for it. I don't collect a lot of vinyl, but I do have that. I got the 3rd album, and I can't remember what it's called now. It's got the guy like he's going through like a space thing,
Oh, Dawn Explosion.
Yes, thank you. Yep, that's the one. Yeah, I think that was their final one, right?
Actually, that was the first one they did that didn't have Rod Evans.
Yeah, because he had left or got fired. I don't know the story was on that, but
so he split the band, and
he's
then,
still alive, and I wish he would somebody would interview that guy. I bet he's got interesting stories to tell. Rod Evans.
I don't think that'll ever happen, because I don't know if anyone remembers this, but back in 1980 he toured as Deep Purple.
Oh yeah, and Richie Blackmore sued his ass. Yeah.
So yeah, he hasn't been heard from since.
No.
Not only did he sue, he sued him for like all his back royalties too. So he doesn't.
Yeah, they
even
took
get
away his royalties. Yeah.
Yeah. I heard that there's like, again, you gotta love the urban legends, but the urban legend I actually heard, which I don't know how. I mean, I've heard a little bit of truth about it, but he became some sort of like a doctor or something in the UK, and ended up becoming like the head of a big hospital ward or something, and like doesn't do music, doesn't do press, doesn't do anything. And Bobby Caldwell, the drummer from Captain Beyond, who co-wrote all the songs with Rod Evans, put together a whole new Captain Beyond lineup a few years ago, and they went out and toured, and it was fucking fantastic. By the way, it was incredible, and I got to do a little bit of work with Bobby and talk to him, and basically it was just like, of course, the first thing he wanted to do is, would Rod be interested? And he got Rod's blessing to do it, but Rod has like zero interest in in anything involving music, which is a bummer, because I'd talked to him for 3 hours just about that first Captain Beyond record.
Yeah.
And he'd wish that he never got talking about music again.
Yeah, it would be nice to, because he's got to be, Blackmore is 75 at least, so he's got to be the same age, so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice to get someone like him would have really interesting stories to tell. Anyway, Wayne, go ahead. I know you had more questions.
And on the topic of obscure bands, I found this band at a yard sale. We reviewed this on the show not too long ago.
That's a spin-off of Boston.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never heard of it before.
The Lost Boston album.
And this album is fucking awesome. I mean, most of it's awesome. There's some really shitty songs on here, but yeah, this is just one of those things that, you know, I never heard of. Found in the yard sale, the guy wanted $1 for it. I was like, all right, fine. Looks kind of cool. Looks like something I'd listen to.
I would have given him $1 for it. Hell yeah.
I've only heard of it. What is it?
It's basically Boston. It sounds like
Boston
Boston
without Tom Schultz taking 20 years to record a single note. So is what it is.
But you go on YouTube, listen to the song "So You Ran." That was like their big single. I think you'll be
The
hooked.
video's hilariously bad.
Oh, terrible, cheesy 80 video, but yeah.
Oh man, is it as bad as Who's Behind the Door?
I don't know.
No, that's.
I'd rather watch Who's Behind the Door.
It's worse than that. It's worse than that video. Because at least Who's Behind the Door has got some chicken spandex suit. No, wait, yeah, no, that's not.
You're
the
thinking
one.
of Wait Till the Summer's Gone.
Yeah, you're right.
Or Tell Me
Who's
What You
Behind the
Want.
Door is worse. Who's Behind the Door? Is
Who's
worse.
Behind the Door was full of like Apple IIe's.
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, it's
I
worse.
don't think I ever saw those. Can't be as worse as the Blue Oyster Cult's shooting shark video.
No, that's pretty shitty too, actually. Yeah.
That is
I don't
god
know,
awful.
That's pretty fucking bad, actually.
That thing makes absolutely no sense.
Like Take Me Away, but that was a weird one.
Yeah. All right. So since you've been doing your podcast and your blog and stuff, you mentioned in the book that you went to a show one time and somebody recognized you and you gave them a bad review and they wanted to fight you. I mean, like, what was the worst? Have you ever had anything like a really bad, like face to face with somebody because of you reviewing their music?
Yeah, that would so I've had a few instances. I got completely barred and banned from a Guns N' Roses show that was coming up because I had given Guns N' Roses' previous Atlanta show a bad review. It was when he was doing the Freak Show tour, you know, before he did the the 3/5 thing. And I basically said he sounded like like an overblown bagpipe, and his people did not like that, and so I was told I was not going to be allowed at any more Guns N' Roses shows ever, which was fine with me. And then I had a run-in with Sebastian Bach online that lasted for about 2 days.
Oh my
and actually I have to thank, because it brought a lot of my readership to the blog.
Yeah, that's great.
Never had a face-to-face with him, but this guy was a local guy, and they were pretty bad band. I don't want to name their name. Actually, yeah, well, they're called Brazen Angel. But anyway, I don't think they know how to work the internet. But anyway,
they're actually
they were opening for somebody, and they were like really bad. And so I just wrote a really bad review and basically just said that I thought they were, you know, the worst band in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And they were actually at a show, like opening for a band that I was covering, and that's never that never sits well with you, you know, when you've given a band a bad review and then you show up at another show and that band is playing and you're like, okay, I'm probably gonna run into these guys, you know. And the dude kind of cornered me in the lobby and, you know, was like, you know, are you the Great Southern Brainfart? And I get asked that a lot, you know, at shows, and it either is going to end. I know it's either going to result in like being bought a beer or being punched in the face, and so like my heart just sinks. And he got in my face, and he was like, you know, that was really fucked up. You said we were the worst band in Atlanta, and I really did not know who he was. And I was like, what band are you in again? And he was like, Brazen Angel. And I was like, man, if it makes you feel better, man, there's been a few other bands that have taken that title since then. And it was very close to I was very close to getting laid out, man. And you know, I'm not a fighting guy, you know, like I you know, I probably punch like a balloon, you know. And yeah, that was like one of the moments I was super scared, you know. Yeah. But
is that the worst one that you had?
Do what?
Is that the worst one?
You know, I think that was the time that I felt the most threatened physically, you know, by an artist. You know, generally they either just block me on Facebook or they just call me a fat troll that lives in my mom's basement. And I just tell them, I say, no, I live in my wife's basement, but, but that was, physical confrontation is, that was probably the closest, and I really did think I was going to get my ass kicked that night.
Right.
That was, luckily a friend of mine from another band was there, and he kind of stepped in and he was like, hey, Don, can you come over here? I need to talk to you real quick. He like got me out of there real quick, but,
That's too funny.
yeah, not, and unfortunately it didn't change, doesn't change how I am, it's like I still just,
Yeah.
That's
That's one thing.
you're entitled to your opinion, and they have to understand that when they're in a position like what they are under scrutiny, whether it's positive or negative. They just, if they believe in what they're doing, let them go forward with it. They shouldn't have to threaten you for it. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Well, that and their name is Brazen Angel. That's ridiculous. Anyway.
Once again, Manny's the voice of reason.
Man, you need to move to Atlanta, man. Like, actually, you should all come down here and just run with me. But it's funny because I think Wayne, you and I might have even talked about this before, is that I think the cool thing about what we do about running like our own blogs or our own podcasts or whatever is that you don't really have anyone to answer to. Right. So you can just be yourself. But when I write my blog, when I write from my blog, I write it like I would be talking to you guys right now, or like if I was sitting at the bar with some friends, or if I was back at the lunch table in high school, so of course I'm going to be obnoxious and snarky and, say things that are kind of, off color, but like, in a very snarky way. I never go after people's personal, like things, or personal things like personal traits. Like I would never say that someone was like fat, or that someone was ugly, or that somebody had some sort of a a disabled type thing, but if you're Axl Rose and you run out on stage and you're winded and you're gross like I'm just gonna say, dude, he sounded like he was like a busted bagpipe, because that's what he sounded like, right? And unfortunately that not everybody can take snarky criticism, and
yeah, that's the one thing I always worry about too on our show, because we're very opinionated about some albums, and we've even had guests on like after we listen to the album, we kind of sometimes don't really like it too much, but especially the last guest we tried to come on, Ronnie Monroe.
I was never gonna drop the name. I can't believe you did it.
Wayne and I talked about that guy who was like his claim to fame is he was in metal church, which is like whatever. He was actually a member of the New Orleans band Lillian Axe. He was in that band. Wow. He was in that band for a photo shoot. Never actually even stepped on stage with the band. They announced him as their singer. Those guys have been through more singers than fucking Spinal Tap went through drummers. Like those guys have just, but yeah, Ronnie Monroe, like didn't even, I don't know, that guy.
I'll level with you about something. And when it comes to that, like, I think at the time Wayne fell ill, and I'm not going to disclose what it was because that's no one's business, Wayne. And
doesn't matter. I had COVID, right?
All right, fine.
Who cares?
So Wayne had COVID, so it was up to me and Greg to take over the interview. I'm like, that's okay. I'll be fine. So the management messaged Wayne, and they're like, well, we don't know this other guy that's interviewing. Is he any good? Does he know how to interview people? I'm like, motherfucker.
Wait, this was for Ronnie Monroe?
Yeah.
What management does Ronnie Monroe have?
I don't know, but I mean, I was really taken aback by that.
I'm like, a piss poor job, because
they should have been calling you to thank you guys for actually answering the phone.
So my attitude was, I was like, you know what? That's okay. You need us. We don't need you. So instead, me and James did an episode on the 5 best mustaches in rock and roll, which was much more entertaining and probably got more views than an interview with him would
About to
have.
say it's a lot more interesting than Ronnie Monroe.
Well, I like metal shirts, but
So do I.
it's like, it's Ronnie Monroe isn't exactly, Ronnie James Dio. I left Black Sabbath, it's
Right.
not, I don't know. I just saw Udo Dirkenschnatter. He did an interview with a young guy. Udo actually has a following. I think he had 52 views. I doubt Udo gives a crap. He did this because it was a fan. And, Udo had, not that I know him, but I'm sure he had better things to do than, I'm just saying
he's actually
very-
come up a lot on, like, because I get emails to get interviews, and he's come up a lot lately.
Well, yeah, because he wants exposure, and he knows these are diehard fans, and and he's got a following. It's not like Ronnie Monroe or whatever. I'm just saying that Udo actually, when he tours, he actually plays big festivals. He's not begging for people to go and see him. I don't know.
No, but the difference is, though, Udo's also an experienced professional. He knows how to talk to people.
Yes, because he's been doing it his entire life. Yeah, and exactly. I don't know. I just find it crazy. Management. Does this guy any good? Yes, because you're about to be interviewed by Rolling Stone magazine, whatever. Anyway, go ahead.
I mean, for me, I was just kind of like taken aback by that. I'm like, you know what? Sasha from Halloween, he has him dropping Halloween name right now.
That's like 3 times tonight.
Yeah,
at least.
he promoted the interview that I did with him on his Instagram and got my interview over 700 views. So I was like, I don't know. Ask Sasha. He was awesome, by the way.
I mean, I generally just don't, I do this because I enjoy it, and I do it for the people that, take the time to listen and take the time to read my shit. So like, I don't do this, I have no overhead, or I have no boss, so like, if you're going to be just like someone like shitty, if you're going to give me a shitty interview, like, I'm just gonna, I cut off Eric Peterson from Testament after 15 minutes.
Really?
About
what happened?
About 7 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. And because he was supposed to do an interview with me, and the night before, Testament had played like one of these big, like it was like one of their reunion shows or something at in LA, and he was hungover the next day, and the interview was at like 2:00 his time out in LA, so it's like 5 over here. And 5 minutes into the interview, he's and just like grunting, and then like I'd ask him a question, and he'd just be like, man, like, and I was just like, I even asked him, I said, are you okay? I was like, is this a bad time to do this? Because if it is, we can just go. And he's like, man, he goes, I'm just like hungover, and like, he's like, I don't know. And I was like, well, this is like your press day, right? And he was like, yeah, I got so many more to get. I was like, all right. I said, well, I'll just let you go, and then you can, do your thing. And he was like, oh, well, and I was like, yeah. I said, look, man, just go and chill and get some water or whatever, and good luck with the rest of your press. And I never posted the interview. I didn't transcribe it, didn't do anything, and I was like, I don't have to.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's your time.
Right. It's on him.
But at the same time, it's also my time, like, I blocked off, 45 minutes of my day to talk to you, so,
Yeah. And also
I'm gonna go cut the fucking grass.
Yeah. Just don't cut your hedges, because you cut your finger.
Wayne, don't poke the bear. Don't poke the bear, Wayne.
This is why I love Wayne, because I was like, the first time I had a friend of mine who was going through some stuff, and I had to be there for him, and then the second time, I think it was actually the night we were supposed to talk.
Yeah.
And I texted Wayne and I was like, dude, you're never going to believe this. I was like, but I think I just about cut my finger off today trimming my hedges. And I sent him a picture of me from the fucking room where I'm about to get stitched up and shit. And he was just like, oh my God, what did you do? And then we scheduled it for today. And Wayne specifically was like, don't leave the house. Like, don't do anything like until after. And I was like, yeah, I'm on house arrest. I'm not touching anything sharp. So,
Yep. And you made it.
But the finger's good. 3 stitches will come out next week. So, I'll be good. So
go good.
At least it wasn't my good one, so.
Final thing, we start our podcast and we've had people or try to get guests on here. They look at your subscriber numbers and things like that. If you don't have a certain amount of subscribers, you won't get them on the show or whatever. But you tried to get a guest on that didn't want to come on your show because of the name.
No, Manny's gonna love this one. Yeah, it was Blackmore's Night. So I actually made a photo meme of it that I posted. I'll send it over to you if you didn't see it. But basically, I had put in a press request to interview Candace Knight. Because I've been I love Blackmore's Night. I think they're kind of fun. They're quirky. It's like kind of Hobbit, Ren Fair music, and I dig it. It's fun. It's different. It's unique, and
she's got a good voice too. Right?
Yeah, I mean, and it's again, it kind of goes back to that whole like it's a different kind of music. It's something kind of different, and it's breaks up the monotony. And so I put in a press request, and their PR person came back and was like, I'll put in this request, but I'll get back to you. And I was like, okay. Didn't hear anything. And then I replied back, and it was like, hey, just wanted to follow up. And they were like, yeah, well, their management doesn't want them doing interviews with a site called the Great Southern Brainfart because they want to be taken seriously. And in my mind, all I could think of is like, Blackmore's dressed like Gandalf, like like she's dressed like like this beautiful like wood fairy or whatever, right. And they're like wearing pointy hats and shit. And I'm going, you want to be taken seriously, and but and then the PR person actually said, you maybe consider changing your name. And when I hear stuff like that just makes you want to persist even more. And right. Lou and Manny, we talk about it's not a rebellious nature, but then this is where the kind of metalhead in us comes back from youth, is that it makes you want to do it even more.
Right. Yeah.
So if someone says, my artist won't talk to a site called the Great Southern Brainfart, that's a terrible name. I'm gonna use it for even longer. I'm going to post it even more. I'm going to make the logo more obnoxious on the, you know what I mean? Like, and then I'm going to go get someone else to interview who might not have the legacy of, say, someone like Blackmore, but, whatever, but has, the credibility and of being a great musician, who says something like, oh, I think the name's hilarious, man. Like, I saw that on my press list and I was like, hell yeah. Like, so, I mean.
Well, I got good news for you, Don. Ronnie Monroe is available for interviews.
I'm not. So,
I'll hook you up.
But yeah, I mean, that's the thing, I always say, stick to your guns,
That album
Rat
sucks.
Salad Review. It's fucking great, man. Like, that's almost as gnarly as a brain fart. And, I dig it. Yeah, great Sabbath reference too.
Yeah, I didn't come up with it, unfortunately, but somebody that doesn't do the show anymore came up with it, but I kept it, and he's no longer with the show.
I think it's great.
It is. I like
great.
it was a really catchy name, so
You
I had
know,
to keep it. I couldn't think of anything better than that. So really, what else would I pick?
you want to be able to, if someone Googles your site or Googles your blog or Googles your podcast, like you want to be the first thing they hit.
Right.
Well, we got to fix the
We're working
SEO
on that.
it first.
Working on that.
And be like Metal Rules, School of Hard Rock, and things like that. Like if you Google the Great Southern Brainfart, you're gonna get a first page hit.
Right.
No one else would claim that shit, but me. So, but
exactly.
But yeah, that's it comes with the territory. You're gonna get told no. And if someone tells you no,
just move on. There's plenty more people out there.
Doesn't matter who says no, it matters who says yes.
Right, Glenn Droller?
Break rules. Like I told Wayne earlier. I said, if a PR person tells you no, go to the artist. You'd be surprised how many times like an artist will be like, yeah, I'll do it. What the hell? And so, don't let one person tell you no and shut you down. If the artist tells you no, then it's pretty much done,
Right, yeah.
But I mean,
like we all know there's plenty of people. Maybe next time. Next year, It's always next year.
This might be the most that Ronnie Monroe's been talked about in 3 years.
Metal Church needs a new singer now, so maybe they will come back.
Yeah, that's true.
What'd you say, Lou?
Sorry, I muted. I said make sure you hashtag Ronnie Monroe in this episode.
Oh, it's gonna be hashtag Monty Monroe the whole thing. Actually, I'm gonna change the name of the episode. It's gonna be Monty Monroe Tribute. That's how it is. Episode 131.
You know how to interview, prick.
Well, do you not? Are you any good at it?
I'm not that good, but I've done okay so far.
You never did a radio show.
Who, me?
Yeah, you never did that. You never did your own
college
podcast.
radio.
Idiot.
You're being sarcastic. Yeah, you're right. I never did any of those things.
It was being sarcastic, Lou.
Sorry, late night. Been up since 3 a.m. guys. Sorry.
It's okay.
Well, you can go to bed now because we are done with Don De Leaumont and his book, The Southeast of Heaven, a Metalheads Journey. Please go check out this book. It's a very fun read, and you will enjoy it very much. And Don, what else do you do? I mean, give us your website and all the podcast stuff.
So you got the blog is the Great Southern Brainfart.com. The Facebook at the Great Southern Brainfart. I am on Instagram at Southeast of Heaven. And on TikTok again, after taking a little break, it's Southeast of Heaven 73. I've got a whopping 185 followers on TikTok, so I'm climbing. I should achieve 200 sometime in 2023, which would be great. But again, doing it because it's fun, So you can find me all over the place. So,
how do you like TikTok, by the way?
I enjoy it. It kind of drives my ADHD up the wall sometimes because it's so much scrolling,
Yeah.
But you have to really dedicate yourself to it, to keep the momentum.
I recorded a bunch of videos the other day all at once, and just to do one thing a video a day, just to keep it up there.
Yeah. I mean, you have to really dedicate yourself to doing it, and I'm going to hop back on the wagon with it though, because it's fun. But it was just one of those things where I was just like, I'm kind of in a transitional mode right now as far as like, working with the podcast and the book and doing interviews and stuff. And so, just trying to kind of collect myself a bit, but yeah, you can find me everywhere. Unfortunately for you.
Go find him, please. Very fun post that he does. And Lou, where can we find you?
musicisLifepodcast.com, and as always, you could find me spreading the good word about radsawreview.com. Just posted my newest episode, a special edition where I went to Poughkeepsie, New York, to the Chance Theater, as Manny said, to see Mr. Yngwie Malmsteen, the maestro. Amazing performance. And I want to thank again Images of Eden, Gordon and Steve, for hooking me and my buddy Matt Migolo up with all access guest lists. We were able to get an interview with the band Images of Eden. I'm rocking their shirt right now. Check them out on tour. They are great. And check out their album Angel Born. And Wayne, I think it may be time to announce that we have some really exciting news.
I'll let you do it. Yes, please do.
So Wayne and I, for the longest time, were talking about doing a Def Leppard cover for Rat Style Review Network. Well, we were originally going to do Ring of Fire, which is on the Retroactive album.
We'll still do that, by the way.
Eventually, we'll do that. But instead, I suggested, why don't we do On Through the Night off the High and Dry album? So Wayne on drums, myself on guitar, George from Timeless Haunt on bass. Again, produced and mixed by the great Alex Rapetti himself. And I had the perfect lead singer, which was John Whitten of the band Shockwire, my buddy from Canada. Well, shortly after we had done the cover, Karen Fairchild Meyer, who is a mutual friend of mine from the Def Leppard Diehard Fans Facebook page, she's the administrator of the group, posted that F&M Records was releasing a Def Leppard tribute album, and that anyone who wanted to be on it just send in the song. So we sent in the song, our version of On Through the Night. We made it.
Cool.
So Rat Style Review's getting represented. So
Can't stop us now.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
That's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
That is cool.
That is really good. That's
never
awesome.
thought that would happen, but that's awesome. It's pretty cool.
You'll have to let
Yeah.
me know when it gets closer, and we'll have to talk about that on my podcast.
Definitely. That'll be out second quarter 2022.
Nice, excellent.
Very cool. Yeah, there's a lot of bands on there. I know Mick Watkins, his band is Wild. What the hell's his name? Band's
Wild Ride?
Yes, Wild Ride. Yeah, he's supposedly they got asked to do a song on there, so they may be on it as well. So
Apparently, the song selections were so good, and I think our song was convincing enough for them to say, we have to put the song on, but we're limited. Okay, we'll make it a double disc.
That's awesome.
Hey, whatever gets us on there, so that's cool.
Wayne couldn't be happy to do it with you, man. I'm really happy to have done it with you.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. I enjoy your guitar work. You're doing a great job. But you're fired.
Feel the same way about your drums, and I'm fired. Yes. So Music is Live podcast, buy your shit over at tpublic.com, link in my on my website. Thank you.
Very
Excellent.
cool. And then you can go to ratsidreview.com, hit subscribe on YouTube, and if you want to hear the podcast and don't want to look at our ugly faces, just go to iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, and hit the subscribe button on there, because we're on there as well. And that is it. Again, thank you, Don, very much for coming on. I had a lot of fun. This is a long episode.
Hey, I love it. I love it. Let's do it again, man. It'll be fun.
Yeah, definitely. You're more than welcome to come back on. And and by the way, too, this is pretty much the final episode of the live episode of this year. I think we might have one more episode, but if it is, everybody have a very good Thanksgiving and have a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. But next week you will see me and Lou, and I think Greg. We did a show with Greg too.
Greg only did the first episode, the first three albums.
The first one. But we're doing like a Def Leppard discography, so that will be on the whole month of December. So enjoy that, have fun, and we will see you next year.
Merry New Year.
Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Don. Thanks, Manny.
All right. Thank
welcome.
you so much.
All right, very cool.